So Aloe Black, who wrote and sang the song Wake Me Up, he claims it was the 13th most streamed song on Pandora in 2014, more than 168 million streams in the United States. But that yielded only $12,359 in Pandora royalties, which works out to 9 thousandths of a cent per stream, or $90 for every million streams. Is that accurate? Is that ballpark?
Well, I can't do the math in my head, so I can't answer that. I'm sure it's ballpark correct.
But $12,000, if that's anywhere near ballpark, it just doesn't sound fair at all.
Well, so one thing to remember, too, is people talk about spins on radio. A spin on a broadcast station is a spin that goes out to hundreds of thousands of people, if not more. But before I answer, let me just put a little context, which I think is really important, because this topic is obviously a heated topic, and I think it suffers from a lot of misperceptions. So the first thing is, so Pandora pays about half of its revenue in royalties, so about $1.2 billion to date. We did $450 million last year. The bulk of that royalty goes to the performer. A much smaller portion goes to the songwriter, which is what that quote refers to. That ratio is not set by us. That's actually a subject of law that predates Pandora. That's an industry question. How should that money be divided up? The second thing is Pandora is the highest paying form of radio. So we pay more than any other form of radio. And we pay not only the composer, but the performer. Broadcast radio, which is a much bigger industry, does not pay the performer anything at all. And so really the elephant in the room with this conversation actually is, why is it that you've got this industry that's many, many times the size that does not pay performers where we pay substantially? I think that's got to get worked out over time.
So who should be paying?
I think all streaming radio should pay both composers and performers. Absolutely.
So who does that apply to?
Well, it applies to every business streaming online, radio, online, offline. I mean, those businesses should be sharing their stake with artists. Actually, I think the revenue coming from Pandora is being, I think, very fairly shared with the business.
Do you think artists should be paid more? I mean, you're an artist yourself.
I think the way we're sharing it is very equitable.
So Taylor Swift pulled her music off Spotify. Why didn't Taylor Swift pull her music off Pandora?
Well, she can't, actually. So we're under a compulsory license, means artists can't actually pull their music off of Pandora. And I think for her and a lot of other artists, what they're really responding to is a lack of transparency. So they see and read about the economics of these businesses, and they don't see that reflected in their royalty statement. And what happens in the middle there is a black box. And I think that's happening more and more. I think Tidal was triggered by that same thing. But
you have to think people like Taylor and Jay-Z have the best lawyers, the best people out there saying, this is how you break it down.
Well, it's true.
Spotify is not making enough money for you.
And I think it's certainly true that some artists, by virtue of their popularity and scale, have the ability to, I think, command more and set the terms more. That's not true of the vast majority of artists.